Welcome to Don't Be a Basic Biscuit, a real estate marketing podcast where we talk about what it takes to stand out in today's real estate world. I'm your host, Harveer Singh, and you can find me on all social platforms under the handle Real Estate Singh. Now let's get the show on the road. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Don't Be a Basic Biscuit. Today I have a good friend and a colleague of mine, Devin Hogan from Hudson United Insurance. He is an amazing insurance provider, but the reason why I have him on today is because of something else. He actually is the king of professional networking, but using professional organizations to find other people. So what I want to do is first, Devin, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then go into, just briefly explaining to us what your strategy is.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Devin Hogan. As you mentioned, I'm with Hudson United Insurance. I am an insurance producer here, so I help people get coverage. I am the president of a BNI chapter. So BNI is Business Networking International. It's the largest business networking organization in the world. I'm also an active member of the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. And I've been previously part of organizations like National Association of Divorce Professionals. I've also been part of Wrestlers.
Did you say National Association of Divorce Professionals?
Yeah. And then the other one I was going to say is Wrestlers in Business Network.
Yeah, you've been all over. So, guys, I wanted to make sure that you understood that, Devin Hogan kind of finds these professional organizations, and as I've mentioned before, it doesn't always have to be real estate related, and that's kind of the perfect introduction because you kind of explained, without me really saying it, that it doesn't have to be a real estate organization in order for you to be able to network with someone. So how do you find these professional organizations, and what is the brain process that you go through to decide whether or not to go to something?
Yeah, so BNI can be found online. Especially if you're in like the insurance business, mortgage business, things like that, it makes sense to find a BNI chapter right away if you're getting started in the business, or you just switch companies, or you're just trying to hit your stride. Maybe you learned a little bit. Now you're know enough to be dangerous and you want to bring in more clients. So online is a way to find them, but that's actually not how I found my BNI chapter. I found it. I had gone to some networking events, and people invited me to their networking groups. There's different groups that I'd visited. And BNI seemed to be the one that people have had a lot of success with that I have talked to. So I applied for one group. I was 24 years old. I was very green. I hadn't done any networking before. I actually didn't get accepted into the first group or the second one that I tried to join. The first one, they could tell that I was very green and didn't really know what I was doing. By the time I applied to the second one, I was doing a little better, but BNI can be pretty exclusive. And they were a little nervous. My brother at the time was doing commercial leasing in the city, in New York City. And, it was a New York City group, and someone else had the seat for that. And my dad had been doing mortgages at the time. They found that out, and they were not comfortable bringing me in the group because they thought my referrals would go to them. But fast forward a little while later, I get reached out to by a guy by the name of Dan O'Hara, my attorney, and he was the president of this BNI chapter at the time, and he had heard from BNI leadership that I had been looking for a group and hadn't been able to find a home. So he invited me to visit, and I was so glad that I didn't get accepted into the first two because this was so much of a better fit for me. When you join these groups, you want to make sure that it's people that you get along with, right? That they're people that you can actually be friends with. Like I've been to 2 weddings from people who are a part of the group, very close friends. This is what happens because BNI meets once a week, every single week. So you really get to know people. But yeah, that's basically how I found it. You go to networking events, you meet people, and, you take their cards, you set up a meeting, coffee, drinks, lunch, whatever it is, get to know them. And then you start getting invited to things, whether that's other events or it's organizations. And so I was lucky enough to find this group that's probably accounted for half the business that I've done since joining it.
So, who are the type of people that are in these organizations? Like, if you were to spew out a bunch of different professionals that were the different types of professionals that would be in, let's say, BNI or one of their competitors, like what type of people are involved in this organization that others can get their referrals from?
BNI, like some of the larger chapters, like Chapter 1 in Manhattan, they have over 100 members, right? So The core circle that usually starts a group, it's usually property and casualty insurance, which is what I do, life insurance, mortgage, real estate, accounting, financial advisor, right? Those are the bread and butter, the ones who join these groups, start them, and the seats are almost never open in groups to get in these professions. And a lot of times you'll apply for a group and 3 other people in these professions will apply, but then it gets way broader. Right. There's groups that have contractors. We've had contractors in the past. There's groups that have chiropractors, dentists, nutritionists, life coaches, executive coaches, people who do lighting. And, I had somebody visit our group. He's one of my clients who does landscaping and buildings in Manhattan. So it's really anyone who has a business who wants to grow their revenue. Because basically everyone works as your sales team when you're there. So basically, if you're a person who has a business, whether you're the owner or you work in sales, and you want to grow the business, it's a great place to go to do it.
No, that's awesome. And so actually we were speaking earlier today and you were talking about how you really find referrals anywhere. Like you were in your, what was your fantasy league? And you're like, everybody there uses me for insurance, for example. And you were talking about how you did the Chamber of Commerce and all of these other organizations. How am I supposed to find these? Then when you got there, how was it that you were interacting with people?
Yeah, you need to be somebody who does things, right? So I am part of a softball league, part of the fantasy football league, and I like to go out. I like to hang out with friends and meet new people, and just get involved in different things, whether that, not that I do a whole ton of it, but volunteering is a great way to do it. People who have kids, if you coach the kids' teams, a lot of times that's a great source of business for people. So it's whatever you like and you're interested in. It could be a run club. It could be a book club. It could be doing yoga. Anything that you like to do for fun, you should go and do it. Like it helps you in business and it helps you, obviously something like yoga is going to help your health as well. So it's just a matter of getting out there, doing stuff, meeting people. And naturally people ask you what you do, but you shouldn't be afraid to tell people what you do. A lot of people, in my industry, people oftentimes are afraid to say that they sell insurance, right? I like to say I'm an insurance broker. It sounds a little nicer, but I'm not afraid of the fact that I sell insurance, and I'll tell people that, and it comes up in conversation, and everyone has what I have to offer. And like for real estate, people are interested in real estate. It's a sexy business. There's a lot of realtors are out there doing it, and a lot of them are really good. So if you're really good and someone else is really good, but someone's your friend, they're going to probably use you. So that's basically how it is. You just have to meet as many people as possible, be involved in organizations, and say what you do, and present yourself well, right? If you're going to yoga, you want to get nice yoga clothes and don't be a slob and bring your mat. Don't come with no mat. I keep talking about yoga. I don't even do yoga, but and just be presentable and be a pleasant person to be around. Treat other people with respect and carry yourself with dignity. And people are going to want to work with you. And I mentioned the Wrestlers in Business Network. So that was something that I joined because somebody very early into my career had said, something that you're interested in, you should get involved in. And I was a wrestler growing up. I'm interested in wrestling. I joined it. I can't say I got a whole lot of business out of it, but it did get me a couple people that were good connections. One of them ended up joining my BNI chapter and has turned into a bunch of business. So it didn't come directly from the Wrestlers in Business, but it was kind of the spider web.
I think the idea that people should be kind of gathering from this is that you can get business from anywhere. And, one of the avenues is going to these professional organizations and trying to network. Let's say you're going to one of these professional organizations that is not really fully geared towards that, right? So you're saying you go to your fantasy football and, working out and here and there. How are you approaching people? When are you approaching people to let them know about what you do?
Very good question. So there's two different lanes of it, right? As we were talking about my softball team, my fantasy football league, you just become friends with people over time, and it naturally comes up what you do. You don't need to be obsessed and be constantly driving down people's throat. No one wants to hear about insurance all day, but sometimes people have questions, and sometimes people do become interested in it. So it's just a matter of just being there, becoming friends with people who you like, and then that naturally happens, right? People ask what you do. It's one of the most common questions in a conversation. And then professional networking, it's more structured. You're going there, like you said, to get business, and everyone's there for the same purpose. So the way you approach it, right, BNI specifically, but any of these networking groups, you can take this formula. You go there. Usually the beginning is open networking. We used to be in person all the time. We're only in person sometimes. The beginning is open networking. It's light. How you doing? What's going on with you? Oh yeah, the kids just played a softball or baseball tournament over the weekend. Are you traveling anywhere soon? Stuff like that. You keep it light with that open networking part, because the part of the meeting and almost all of these types of organizations. One of them's like, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but one of my coworkers, Barry, is part of a group that's very similar to a BNI, and it's the same thing. You give what's called a commercial. So it's usually 45 seconds where you say what you do, right? And you can ask for referrals. You can tell a story about somebody that you helped, right? And it's very important to be able to pitch yourself well during that time, make people want to use you. And a lot of times it could be repetitive, right? BNI meets every week. For a while, I was really trying to drill into people that I'm very good at flood insurance. For 2 months, every week, flood insurance, just talk about flood insurance. And then no one ever asked me the question again, do you do flood insurance? And so that is part of it. And then the other part of it is you go to the meeting, right? And I always say this as the president. I'm like, the meeting is almost a formality. What really happens is between the meetings, right? We meet every Tuesday. So from Tuesday at 9 a.m. when we get out of our meeting to Tuesday the next week at 7:59 before we get into our meeting, that's when the work happens, right? So the first thing you do, you join the group, you do what we call one-to-ones, which is a one-on-one meeting with people. You do it with every single person in the chapter, and when you met with the last person, you go right back to the beginning and you do it again and again and again and again. And, sometimes it becomes like, let's say you're in a group with 100 people, right? You're not going to gel with everybody. And maybe you don't focus your energy on somebody that you just are very not alike and you guys don't get along or whatever it is. But generally, most people are nice, especially who are joining a group like this. Although the Long Island serial killer did join a BNI group, so you got to be careful. But
Did he really?
Yeah. But anyway, so you do the one-on-one meetings, right? And when you're in those meetings, you get to know people. You don't talk about business the whole time, but you do ask them, like, how can I help you? Who do you need to meet? Who are your clients, and who are the people who know your clients, right? Because they're going to have the answer to that. And if they don't, they should figure it out, because you should have the answer to that as well if you're in these groups. So you find out how you can help other people. And that's the whole thing. BNI's mantra is givers gain. So you look to give referrals to people, help their business, help them in their personal life, however it is. And naturally, they're going to want to help you back. But it's not a quid pro quo thing. It's something that you give into the collective, and then the collective gives back to you, right? So you do those meetings, you give referrals, right? So there's 4 metrics that we judge it on. It's one-to-ones, how many people are meeting with each other. Then it is how many visitors are you inviting, right? Because if you grow the group, then there's naturally going to be more people on your sales team, right? And then there is referrals, which is obviously, very important. And then the even more important one is closed business. How much revenue closed from the referrals you gave, and how much revenue did you close from the referrals you receive? And that last part I want to focus on, because it's very important to do a good job with the clients and give that VIP treatment, because this is an absolute goldmine, right? So let's say you are overwhelmed with clients and it's tough to give things the attention that it deserves. Prioritize the stuff from the BNI group or whatever the organization that you're putting not all your eggs in, but putting a lot of eggs in the basket. You're going to want to prioritize those leads, because the more people come back to the person who referred to you and say, thank you for introducing me to Devin. He did such a great job. That person, you just want a referral source for life, right? So that's really how you approach it.
That's actually, no, that's really good. And what I really like about that is how often you guys continue to talk to each other. And because that's what I think the biggest problem is with people when they go to events, and maybe even just regular networking events, is that they just collect these, business cards and throw them on the side of their, bed nightstand. It sits there for 3-4 days, and you're like, all right, I'm not going to call these people, and throw it away, right? the whole point of going to these events is meeting new people and getting to know them on a deeper level. All right, so another thing is if you're going to, let's just say now, another one of these events, let's say it's your first time, not BNI, let's say Chambers of Commerce. I know that you've gone to some of they have breakfast events, for example, and you went to one where you don't really know anyone. When you're meeting someone for the first time, how does that conversation start? And then where does that usually end up, right? So how do you introduce yourself? Do you immediately introduce yourself as your insurance agent? Do you really deep dive, or do you ask them about what they do? So kind of go into the actual conversation.
Yeah, usually the easiest way to go up to somebody is I say, "Hi, I'm Devin. What's your name?" It sounds so simple, but people are afraid to do it. But people are at a networking event for a reason. They want to meet people, and they want to meet you, right? So, hi, I'm Harveer. Nice to meet you. Easiest way to start it, they say their name, whatever. And then a lot of times it can go into, you can say, what do you do? Because you're not always going to think of the right thing to say at every moment, and that's okay. But if you're asking questions and you care more about that person than yourself in that conversation, then it's going to work, right? But oftentimes it can be better being like, asking somebody like, cool, sure. Where'd you get that? Oh, you're the best dressed in the room. I need to get more like you. Who's your stylist? Like something like that. Just keep it light.
What a charmer.
Yeah, and then you get into stuff, right? Or whatever it is that you thought of in the moment. Be like, oh wow, the drinks here are really good. Or wow, the coffee's lukewarm today. What's going on here? And something like that. That it's not so business, because the business will come. The conversation will steer to that. You're in a networking event. And a lot of times what's better than asking, what do you do, is like, what are you at this event for? What are you looking for? Something like that. And they might say, I'm looking to grow my business. They might say, actually, I'm looking to hire somebody, or I'm looking to get speaking gigs, or whatever it is. Not everyone is looking for, to close a real estate deal or to close an insurance deal. People have different reasons for being there. So that's a great question to ask people. But like I said, just caring about the other person, asking questions, they're going to ask you about yourself, right? If you're asking them a bunch of questions, if they don't ask you about yourself at all, and they only care about talking about themselves, chances are they're not going to give you any referrals anyway. So, just focus on other people, lead with how can I help you? And you're not always going to be able to help everyone, but if you at least try, then people respect that. And then what I do now at networking events, like let's say outside of the BNI, like going to an event at night somewhere or whatever it is, I oftentimes be like, listen, I am the president of a networking organization in Manhattan. I get a lot of business from it. I'd love to see if you'd like to see if you can get business out of it. And then I'm not even trying to sell them insurance. I'm just saying, hey, come to this group, because they come to the group. They're my referral source for life. So it's a huge value add to people to be a part of these organizations, and to just, you end up becoming the person who knows everyone. Oh, I need a real estate attorney. I need a trust and estates attorney. I need an accountant, whatever it is.
Yes,
you always have an answer, and you always have a person for it. And the good thing about BNI and similar organizations is you vet everyone, right? We've had many of applications that we did not accept for whatever reason. Somebody was being inappropriate at the meeting. We had that once with this accountant who came by. One time I was vetting somebody for my group in the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, and turned out she was disbarred for stealing money from a client.
Oh, wow.
And I asked her about it. I didn't say no right away, because you never know what happened, whatever. I mean, I was leaning towards not accepting her, but she was so insulted by me asking that she didn't want to join. But it's like, of course I'm going to ask. We don't just let everyone into these groups because we want to refer business to people. And if you're referring business to
professional,
yeah. And if you refer business to people that are bad, your clients are going to be upset that you introduced them. You want, like I said, your client to come back and say thank you. And then if you do that and somebody's client says thank you to them, you won. You're doing very well then.
Wow, there's actually quite a bit to unpack there. First thing was just going up and say, hi, my name's Harveer. What's your name? Right? That's something that reminded me of a really good book called The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. I know so many people who are just so scared to just make that first move. And in that book, it says, count to backwards from 5 to 1. And by the time you're hitting 2 or 3, you just start walking. Don't even think, just start walking and just go. And then just, hi, my name's blah. Right. And that's why I kind of said that, because you immediately went into that. The other thing is, asking other people about how you could help them. Because, of course, you don't want to come off as a type of person that's, again, like you said, only talking about yourself. And because that's probably somebody that's not going to refer you any business. But asking somebody, hey, how can I help you? Look, I'm a realtor, for example. I come across quite a few people. If you could describe to me who your ideal client is, how would you describe that to me? And so I ask them that, and then I think in my head, oh, I have an introduction that I can make for you, right? So giving somebody something in your BNI, I think the founder wrote Giver's Gain, and then there's another book that I know of called The Go Giver, and both fairly similar ideas. That is like, if you give, you will eventually receive. And then the last thing that you said is ask the other person questions. I think that's super important. I actually learned that from a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, a really good book. But what it essentially said was people really enjoy talking about themselves, which is true in any any environment, whether you're meeting friends or you're at a sporting event, or if you're just meeting anyone for the first time, even in a professional environment, people like to talk about themselves. So if you don't know what to talk about, ask them about themselves. So those are actually, it's so funny because it was linked to 3 books that I really enjoy, and it makes sense. So Devin, if you wanted to give anyone a piece of advice, kind of like a last piece of advice, what would you give them? Like, what is the most important thing that you have learned that has helped you the most?
As far as networking goes, I think you said the most important thing, but I'm going to say a couple things. So the first one we already mentioned, which is, care about what the other person has to say and lead with trying to help them. The other thing is become an interesting person, which, like I mentioned, go do the things you like. If you like to read, maybe join that book club, or maybe just read a bunch of books. Join the softball team. Right now the Olympics is going on, right? If you're at a networking event, that's a great thing to talk about with people. Most people have at least a baseline knowledge of what's going on with the Olympics. If you can't think of something to say, because it happens to everyone in a social situation, forget about networking. If you're somebody who's like looking to date and you go to try to meet somebody, that's like the classic thing that like you can't think of anything to say in the moment, right? So a lot of that is staying up on what's going on and doing things and becoming well-read and having all of the, becoming an interesting person, I would say.
And really important information there. So guys, you could find Devin Hogan on Instagram as Devin Hogan 40. So DEVIN HOGAN 40. And you could also reach him. What's your email? It's devin.hogan at HudsonUnited.com.
Devin.Hogan at HudsonUnited.com. And I have one phone number. It's my personal cell phone, 631-780-2335. Call me, text me, email me, shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm responsive on all. You can even send a carrier pigeon. If it comes to my window, I will open the piece of paper.
I will say that I have all my insurance with this guy. And, it's really great because he was able to save me a lot of money and also save my family a lot of money. But guys, before I end off, and I'm not going to say don't be a basic biscuit just yet, I want you guys to share this podcast with some of your friends. I want you to subscribe to the YouTube if you think it was helpful. And in the link below, if you put your information in, I'll be able to send you some valuable content as well. So guys, now I'm going to say, don't be a basic biscuit. Thanks for listening in.